Hi there, today I'm going to try my first all the way through card video, and I hope I don't bore anybody, and I hope I have everything out that I need. Making this center step card with the foam frame and some daisies, and we'll be exploring a bunch of different techniques today, and I'll just jump right in and get started. I've already made 6 of these, and I tried to save out my supplies so I could make a 7th one on camera. So I've pre-cut my center step card, and you can find out how to use that die in my regular basic card cuts videos. So I'm just going to fold this here. Alright. And I actually have my bone folder today. Imagine that. Alright. So here we have our basic center step card folded. I know it's a little odd with the way the camera sits. I have this Doris folder. I don't have the folder on my original card that I had done, but this will work. And a lot of people don't realize that you can put your whole card into a folder and it will emboss all the way through. So I'm going to center this up. Now it doesn't have any pattern here at the bottom edge, but that's okay. And I do realize that I am missing one thing, which is my embossing folder adapter that I made out of chipboard so that I didn't have to change to my long plate. Alright, so the card is folded and it is in the embossing folder. And of course you always put your seam in first. And make some noise. Bring that back over here. Alright, before I take that out, I'm just going to get this machine out of my way. I have a very limited amount of space here, so that will give us a little bit more. Okay. Alright, so now we have our center step card, and it is all embossed on the top edge there. Okay. And we don't need this again until the very end, so I'm going to just set it aside here. And then I want to talk about the foam frame. There's also a tutorial that I've already done on cutting the foam for all over pop dots. You can refer to that on how to cut it. What I did is I took my circle frame set and I attached the 2 pieces together with contact paper, and I used my diagram that comes on the packaging with how to center them, how to line them up, and then I laid the contact paper down and then I stuck them on top of that. I'll do a video later on shaker cards, but then I coated the excess sticky with baking soda to keep it from sticking to the foam. So then I cut my foam piece. Again, all over pop dots is the video for that. And at the same time, while these are still stuck together, I cut my cardstock overlay, which is here. Alright, so I'm just going to hop to it here. I'll set the foam aside. I'm alternating between standing and sitting, so if you hear me trip myself, that's why. Okay, so I used Memento Summer Sky to edge my frame, and hopefully I'm sticking this in the right place. You can see the blue here on that. Alright, so we'll show you how I did that. I like finger daubers. I think it's whatever you're comfortable with, because I've been doing these things for so long with the finger daubers. So I'm just going to pick up some of the blue and load up the dauber, and I'm going to come from the outside edge here, and I'm going to drag that to the edge. And I know some people will say, oh, that's going to wear out your dauber, but this dauber has been used for probably 3-4 years and it's just fine. So I'm not pressing hard. I'm also tilting so that the back of the dauber is touching the paper and the front is raised, and that's what helps me get that darker edge. Now, I'm not an expert on anything. I just like to do stuff, and these are the tricks that I have figured out work best for me. If you are into other applicators and other inks, feel free to use those. I do like Memento because it is a waterproof ink, and I'm so used to stamping and then coloring with the Dove blender, watercolor pencils, whatever, that I like my waterproof ink, and it just is what I happen to have. Any inks, of course, will work. So you just work your way around this edge, and I'm going to try to go quickly because I know it's boring to watch. You can fast forward. Maybe I should load it on a time lapse too. That would be funny. Okay, so work our way around this edge. Alright, and I'm not going to finish that because I have an extra one laying over here. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to show you the inside. Again, tilting and pulling towards you, I got just that little rim to show here. So I went around it twice on the finished one, but you can see where you're getting that color around the frame. So, like they always like to say, the magic of television here. I have a finished one. Alright, and what I did is I tested the circle that popped out of here because it's the same color of cardstock. I tested my ink colors on that, and that's how I determined what color of blue that I wanted there for that. Okay, so now this and the foam can get set aside again because we're finished with that. Now some of the components here, the grass tops, the daisies, some of them I already finished because I wasn't thinking always of doing the videos. I was trying to mass produce this card, and so some are colored, some are not. And I wanted to show you with the tiny little daisies, in order to get that tight little portion right there, you may need to take your pokey tool and kind of poke and drag out that little piece of paper. On some of them it really stuck, and on some of them it didn't. And then a toothbrush, just pressing down and kind of rubbing it. That helps get all the little fuzzies away, and I do that to all of my paper pieces before I color them and whatnot. And this one I think is the extra. I lost one of these little guys somehow. Alright, and just, you can clean up those little pokey parts in there and just get those papers out. Okay, so to do these flowers, I should have done all of these except for one, but we'll hurry on this. You can always fast forward me or go get yourself a snack or a cup of coffee. Alright, so I'm using Brilliance Rocket Red Gold. I love the Brilliance. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to come from the outside edge here. And if you have a favorite way to do your flowers, of course, do them your favorite way. Be careful, kind of, I have to get back in the flow of how I did this yesterday. So just a little bit of a circular motion. And for me, I'm not trying to tint this or change this color of the paper entirely 100% to a different color. I'm just wanting to make it not blah, bland colored paper. So I'm just lightly dragging it. I'm not even really pressing it. I'm just letting the weight of the dauber and the weight of my hand press that into the cardstock there. Let me do these really quickly. Alright. And we're going to cover the center of the flowers mostly with the other flowers, so I'm not really concentrating on doing anything specific to the insides of them there. Alright. I don't have any stories to fill in the silence with. If I think of tips, I will throw them in here. Let's see. The more dry your inks are, I've found, for me, the better I can work with it. So I generally do load it and then tap off on my sheet. I hope I'm working in the center of the camera. I would have to stand up here to see if I am. Sometimes my first flower ends up being lighter colored, or my first leaf, or whatever it is that I'm doing, because I started out really light and then I got more confidence as I went and I started getting them a little bit darker. So before you put away your ink, this one's kind of tiny, we have to go outward. Make sure that you have looked over your flowers and make sure that they're all the same lighter darkness that you want them to be. To me, flowers grow all different ways. I don't think you can put them to a color chart and have them exactly the same. So I think it will be just fine. I've learned to relax a lot in my crafting. I used to be way symmetrical and way too worried about everything being perfect. There is no perfect. So, alright, I have all my little flowers done here. Okay. That didn't sound good outside. We have a lot of wind up here. Okay, so now I want to show you, I've already done the same thing with my foliage. This is the fern, and I know you're not going to be able to see this, but the original paper is an olive color, and I just randomly added some Memento Cottage Ivy, just splotched it across them. And then these already have, oh no they don't, I did wait. Ha! I'm a good kid. Alright, so we'll do those as well here with the moose along with the grass tops. And hopefully I'm working, like I said, in the center of my screen. Okay, so on these I used the Nouveau Mousse, and we'll start out with a little bit of the orange. So this is, I had to color coordinate, I am a little ridiculous that way. So this is a cello sponge, I think they're like $2 for $1 at the Dollar Tree, and I cut a little chunk of it and I'm going to put that, I leave that in my mousse as an applicator, and it is slightly damp. The mousse, when it gets wetness to it, it does help it to move the mousse around and control it a little bit better. I was kind of frustrated with the mousse when I first got it. I didn't really care for it. So I've just wet that sponge a little bit more, and I used bottled water. I only use clean water. I don't use tap water because it can grow bacteria in here. Alright, so my flowers are what I'm doing. I loaded up a little bit of the mousse onto the sponge, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of a palette here with it. I don't want it to be too strong. And I'm just going to drag that on the little flower edges just a little bit. And videos are always so hard for you to see the shimmery capability that the mousse has in it, but it adds just a little bit of sparkle to it. And again, I can just pick up more of the mousse, wipe it here, and just touch it. Again, if you get yourself focused too much on each individual flower, and does that look smooth enough, does that look blended enough, you're going to drive yourself insane. And it's very hard to craft in a straitjacket, so don't do that. So just add some sparkle to it here. And I'll go ahead and do all of these with the orange. And if you get it a little bit dark, or you notice it's starting to kind of like blob a little bit, just rub that sponge out onto your makeshift palette here. And again, we're covering the center of the flower, so it really, how they look in the middle doesn't really matter. Focus only on the things that matter, so a little bit more there. Alright, so the orange is really brilliant and really bright, and store your sponge in there. The moisture of your sponge stored in there, and it won't mold because it's the clean water. This actually keeps moisture in the mousse, and I really like it. But the colored ones can be rather dark. So I like the pale ones as well for this. I'm going to lighten these up a little bit. So we'll rub this. I'm going to stand up real quick and make sure I'm working in the camera. Yep. Okay, good. Alright, so I'm just going to add a little bit of the yellow on here, and it gives it a variation or a variable color to it, and it lightens up if that orange was too bright. Instead of going, oh man, now it's too bright and I don't like it that color, you can kind of play with some of the other mousse colors and say dull it down a little bit or sparkle it a little bit. Okay, palette, and I just want a little bit here and there random. And get the idea. Now on white paper, the mousse doesn't cover as well because it's a transparent kind of a product. Oops, forgot to do that. That one's going to be a little bit sparklier. So I was kind of discouraged using it on white stuff. Play with it on colored things and adding highlights. Now I'm not really a mixed media person, so for me, I'm not going to be using a palette knife and scraping this stuff out into a big old chunk and mixing it and putting it on a stencil. Honestly, if I were going to do stencils with this stuff, I would use stencil paste and let the stencil paste dry, and then come back in, put the stencil on top, and highlight it with different colors of the paste, and then you're not going to go through so much of your paste and it's going to last longer. I really wish that the magic of television was really magic so that you could see these fantastic colors. And then I used the green here. This one, I guess I should be telling you the colors too. I can go back and put all those into like the description. So here's the grass. I did little bit of light and dark there just to give it a variation. And my sponges are still wet, so I don't really need to add any more water. And I'm just going to add, just kind of pounce it, kind of drag it, just little bits like the sun was catching it and reflecting off of a shinier portion of the grass. Alright. I am definitely a hobbyist. I am no artist, so please do not think that anything I'm doing is wonderfully perfect, because it is not. Alright, so, oh, that one I did do. On these I laid them, I was once told by someone that I made my dies wrong, that I should have a left and a right of them, but I never use the dies really as is. So what I did is I laid down going different directions, and I did my ink on them. And I used Memento Cottage Ivy. I love the little dewdrop pads, they're nice and tiny. And then I'm going to add some of the gold mousse, and you can see I have this one really wet in there because I do tend to use that more. And I use my finger, and I'm going to dabber that off so there's barely any on my finger, and I'm just patting it. And you're going to get used to what is comfortable for you, what you like that you've created, but you can't get good at something and like it if you don't play with it. So, you know, cut some scrap paper, play with it. Practice makes perfect. Well, practice makes better. Not always perfect. Alright, and so alright, and if you get too much, you're not going to use all of the foliage, by the way. We're going to be using just the top portions of it on this one to tuck them back behind. So, all done. I love this product because it washes off your fingers with the diaper wipe, so you don't have to worry about getting it everywhere. Alright, where am I now? Okay, we have the little dragonfly. So, we'll put the dragonfly here. And I am going to use Brilliance. And now I don't have a dauber for every single ink pad that I own. So purples are purples and blues are blues and teals are teals and greens are greens for me. It's too expensive and too hard to keep up with them. So I just do that. So I'm going to load my dauber as it is here, and then I'm going to come in at an angle so that I can pull that color, hopefully mostly just on the wings of this little character. Tiny little guy here. Or girl, whichever. Okay. And then the Brilliance has kind of a hybridness to it. It has a little bit of embossing property versus a little bit of dye property at the same time, so it kind of smooths and blends. And so this is the dye teal, and I only want a little bit of this. So just along those outer edges. And so the teal on top of the lavender, pearlescent purple actually, it makes it look different than the tail and the antennas by doing them just plain teal. And I will move this paper so you can see the actual colors of the items. This was a bunch of misprinted. You can probably see the packaging on the other side. I misprinted some stuff, so might as well use it up. Alright, then I'm going to use the pink flambe mousse. Okay, and what I did here, you can see I haven't used my sponge yet at all. Let me wet my sponge with my bottle. Alright. And I'm just going to kind of blot that and get it wet, kind of squeezing that water out and mix that. So they can get really dry. The good news is they didn't freeze over the winter. Mine were all out in the trailer and I was afraid that they would be frozen. So just kind of mixing that into kind of a paste. And then I have a teeny little applicator here. I do sell these, or I used to, so I could probably find them if anybody's interested. A Q-tip would work as well. So I'm just going to take this little dragonfly, this little applicator, and I'm going to put a little bit of the mousse there, and I'm going to drag it and smooth it kind of with my finger. And just come that way, and then use your finger to blend it. It added kind of just a bright pink in the middle and a little tiny bit of sparkle that you can see on the actual finished one. So, all done. And that mousse will wash right out of that applicator, so I can reuse it. A Q-tip would actually be better, the pointy Q-tips, because this is kind of flexible. It's not really meant for this, it's meant for glues. Okay, so I'm looking at my object. Let's go ahead and build our flowers. I'll just slide these guys off the back. And I don't know if you can see it, but I have a whole heaping helping of leaves that were left over from the cards I made yesterday. And I will use those for other flowers, so I'm not going to throw them away. Alright. I have the Tonic Studios, and I'm not really just endorsing a brand. Any ball stylus is going to work. This is what I happen to have. I have the stylus tool set with the foam mat, and I'm just going to throw the flower on here. And yep, this is a size ball. So I'm going to just rub the petal, and this actually will rub out the little lines that you get from die cutting, from the openings in the dies or whatever. So this is where I can rub my leaves backwards and make them come out. And I'm not a professional flower shaper. I just know what I like. So this is what I do. So I just kind of bent those petals out, and then the center on the reverse side. And you're just breaking the weave of the paper. I used to do this just with my fingernail, but I thought I should be a little more professional and show you all this. So here I am, showing you. And the harder you press, of course, down in the middle, the smaller, the more those petals are going to pop up on there. So we'll just keep rolling that around. I found it's easier just to kind of like let it do what it wants to there on the mat, rather than try to control it. Yes, I am a complete control freak, but I'm getting better every day. Alright. So I like to say, whoops, I started with this middle. You know, you might not have a complete card in mind, but you could take your scrap paper and you can cut out foliage and flowers and put them in a little container. You could go so far as to do them in some of your favorite color ranges, like the oranges and the yellows, or the pinks and the purples, or whatnot. And you could build the complete flowers, and then when you go to make a card, you're going to have all of these little components already done, and it makes it that much quicker to put a card together, because I know most of us have not a lot of time to craft. I know you would think I do with owning this business, but there's a lot to owning the business that I don't get to craft. So, and you can see I'm being really particular about staying on those petals. Not really. So, and then, oops, just gonna push. Can you see that? Just kind of pushing that down in there. And you can reshape all these little petals a bit later when we are actually assembling the card. We'll do some readjustments. Alright. Sorry, I guess I should have done all of these. Like I said earlier, I should have just had one or two left to show you. But hopefully y'all, whoops, I forgot to again. Y'all get coffee or a drink. Put me on pause or leave me running. Okay, come on, turn over. I think these kind of end up being like little spiders with their petals they want to grab onto you. Okay, flower petals are shaped. Alright, I use Glossy Accents as my go-to dries, clear, and hard glue. This set does come with a cool little pair of reverse tweezers. So reverse means that when you squeeze them, they open. When you let go of the squeeze and relax, it will hold the item. So just as a how-to here, I'm going to put just a little dot of the Glossy Accents in the middle, and I think I forgot to put my pin in yesterday when I was cleaning up. So just, this is the rust-proof pins that I sell, and there we go. Just opens that up, and I don't need to put the pin in right this second. It will be just fine without it. So we're going to grab this flower and we'll sit it down in there, and then I take the smaller end of the stylus and I hold it in place. And you can kind of turn the stylus around, you can twist them to get them to stick down where you want them to. Practice, practice, practice. You'll get better at it. A little dot, a little flower. I'm sorry for reaching across. I should lay it on the other side. And then hold it. Okay. Just keep it in my hand. I'm a bit out of practice, folks, on demoing. It's been a while since I've been at a show and done some demonstrating. Alright, and if you don't like it before it really grabs, you can kind of twist it, but they don't exactly line up perfect, which flower petals don't anyway. Looks like I have an extra flower. Oops, glue first. And a little bubble, but nobody will see it because it's hiding behind. And stick that one down. Okay, so you have extra little flower. Maybe squash that one down and put it on the envelope flat. Alright, here I have my little flat back pearls. Somewhere I had a lid that I could pour them in. Alright, so we're going to need the white ones out of here. And these are a $2 little bottle of pearls that I sell. I'm not even quite certain if I have them on the website. They're just the pastel colors. So I'm going to need 3, 4, 5 of them. I would have counted these out too, but then I don't know where to put them because I don't have much space and I probably would have lost them all over the floor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Put those out of elbow range. And again, I'm just going to use the glossy accents to stick these down, and I'm not using any special tool or anything. You can pretty much pick these little ones up with just the pressure of your finger. Okay, let go of me. Guess that was a lot of pressure. And then the flat part of the tweezer will help lay it down. If you squish out any of the glossy accents, don't worry, it dries completely clear. So I've never seen any extra little goobers, if you will. I might have something sticky on my finger because it's over sticking. There we go. Kind of slide that in the middle. When you press it down, it kind of creates a suction that holds it in place. You know, I don't think I've ever done a video like this or a demonstration from start to finish. It's pretty weird. So here I put a bigger blob of the glue. Let's see if I can get these to flip over. I never liked the pre-sticky little dots and pearls because they never work for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop these down in the middle here. I'll slide them together, scooch them. I just want a 3 dot in the middle. If it wants to cooperate, that would be wonderful. It doesn't want to, it wants to pop a wheelie up on the other ones here. Go. Thank you. And I have a lot of glossy accents in the middle here, but again, like I said, it'll be clear. So those are our built flowers, and they've kind of, the petals have squished together. They're not as separated as they were, but that is okay. Alright, so now I want to shape my dragonfly and my leaves. And my boyfriend informed me that I do dragonflies and butterflies wrong, that their wings are technically supposed to go upright, not backwards. So I have corrected my behavior. Sounds like he's a control freak if I say it that way. He's really not. But now I'm going to have my dragonfly poked up just a little bit there. And now to our foliage. So everywhere you added the gold is, you're going to put that down on your leaves. And you should have some going one direction at the top and some going the other direction. Alright, and this one goes this way. And we need 5 of them. Looks like I have a decent right, left, right, left. So I'm just going to rub in the middle of the leaves again. And I am using kind of a fatter ball stylus, but that's because I don't want it to put a groove in the middle of it. So this is what makes my die not be a left and not be a right. It is either way. That way you can just use it. And let's say that you were building your flower bouquet and you needed one of these that was going the other direction. Well, then you could just flip it over and ink the other side and have either direction. So I'll just do this. And you can see that it doesn't take a ton of time. It probably took me 3 hours to make, think out and do all the components for 7 of these cards. But I was also trying to think of it how I would teach it as well. So now I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to change to this little bit fatter stylus, and I am going to just rub down the center line there. Kind of curls them up. Nothing, has to stay exactly one way. What I mean by that is, whoops, I did the wrong side of that one. Here, we'll toss him over here. I thought that looked like the gold was on the top. I need new glasses. We'll do him at the end here. Turn around. Might be easier if I stood up on these. I don't know, sometimes standing is an easier way to craft, and then sometimes it kills your back. So, alright. And then you can cooperate now. It tried to run away, it didn't want to be on this particular project. Okay. Lay down. Behave. Okay. I'm going to just dump those off, maybe. That will get off of there. Okay, so it looks like I do want to put my pin back in there now. It looks like I have virtually everything except for my hello, and we'll get to the hello later. Alright, so we're going to do some assembly now. Alright, so we have our foam and we have our frame, and no matter how hard you try, you probably aren't going to get it lined up perfectly. So if I line up my outside, I'm off. So that means that I would need to rotate this until it's perfect. Or, since we will be putting flowers down along one corner here, you could actually put your part that you got off a little bit on that side. So just in case you didn't notice it. But you just rotate it until you get it lined up. And guess what? It's not going to stay that way because you're going to put tape on it. Now, I haven't done it, but I think it would be kind of cool. You could just use just the foam and ink the foam. I have made a hummingbird before, and then I stamped on the hummingbird. But you could do this card with the foam frame and just use the foam for the frame. So I need my tape runner, and I am just going to runner my tape around my frame. Okay, alrighty. And before I stick it down, I am going to try to get it lined up straight again. I love the plus tape because it gives me that little bit of movement. That one's not the right way. That one. Kind of check it as you go around. That can work. That can work. That can work. So I'm just looking to make sure before I give it a really hard press. Before it's hard pressed to line up. Alright. Alright, so there is our foam frame, and this is the side I can see that is off a little bit now. So this is the side that I would put like over here where the flowers are going to cover it. And next, so you determine which way is up, so to speak. And then I'm going to flip that over, keeping my point part up here as up. And I'm going to just put some tape across here. And this part I do need to stand up for. Whoops. And so that is my up point, and I'm going to line it up on my grass. For how much of the grass do I want to use? Okay, press that down, and then we are just going to snip away the extra grass here. And I'm going to put the tape across here and around the frame. And my card that I set aside is here. Okay. So now I want to just place and position this. This little point is to the top. Come down. not exactly center between top and bottom, a little more space at the bottom than I have at the top, and try to get it level, left to right. And we're calling that good. Alright, so we have our frame attached to our card, and we're going to be working right on top of the frame now from here on out. And let's see how well I can do this standing up and kneeling on the chair. Alright, so we have our daisies. Okay. So you kind of just decide where you want them. And I put them a little tighter so I can overlap petals, which I'll do with my pokey tool here in a bit. So I'll take my glossy accents and a dot goes there. Oops, oh, there you go. And I'm going to place that, whoops, it's slippery. Place that on there. You can see it grabbed now though, really fast. You can put it right on the back of the flower if you want. I tend to find I position it better if I know where that center dot was supposed to be for that first one. Okay, and then I'm going to lift that petal and kind of tuck this one here. And I did notice I did 6 of these all in assembly line fashion. They all did turn out just slightly different. Unique. Alright, and your pokey tool comes in handy here, like if you want to tuck this one kind of up under it a little bit. Okay, we have flowers. Now we have our foliage, our fern leaves. Oh, did I forget to straighten you? Nope, you're the backwards guy. Okay, so then I'm going to take this one, and I want it to be kind of tucked back up under there, but it's kind of long as is, and it's kind of floppy. So what I'm going to do is just take my fingernail here, not much of one, but I'm going to just pinch and twist, and I'm going to tear away that portion. Okay, now I have to sit down because I'm too high above it. And I'm going to put little glossy accents here, and I'm going to lift up, whoops, my flower wasn't quite dried. It's okay, we'll lift it up and stick it down underneath the flower. And there's that one. And then this one, get my shiny sides up. This one I want down along here. And again, it's too long, so we will pull it apart. Put some glossy on it, and then pull up the flowers and tuck it underneath, and then I take my pokey tool and just kind of press against that where the base of it is so that the glue sticks. I have built several of these, so I do kind of know where I want the foliage to go, and you may have to just play with it. So you may need to tuck it in there and maybe have a couple of scrap ones already torn so you can say, okay, I want a tall one here, short one here, whatnot. And sometimes you gotta pick it up and hold it up in the air so you can look behind and place that one. I don't want that to line up with the petal of the flower, so I just kind of spun it a little. Press that, whoops. And you can see it's not cooperating. You go that direction, and now up under there I can squish. And then he will stay where he goes. Alright, so most of these I don't use full length. There are other projects where I do use them, but not this particular one. So up under here. And I didn't take floral design ever, and so I don't know if this is even right, but I like the looks of it, so I will call it good. And I'll rotate this. I'm going to tuck this one up underneath so that not very much is showing when it's catching on the other. There we go. Maybe there. And press that. It kind of wants to move on me. it wants to go where it wants to go. So there it went. So now I have all of the flowers placed and all of the foliage placed, and dust off my little flaws there. Now I want to play with the flowers and adjust them. So I'm going to take my pokey tool and I'm going to lift up. And you might not keep the exact bend that you had in the flower when you shaped it with the shaping tool, but you broke down the weave of the paper. So it makes it so that you lift it like this, it's not going to crinkle per se. It's going to bend and flex without leaving a crease, if that makes sense. So I just go along. If I want this flower to be a little bit more rounded, I just put my tool under it and I bend around it. So we can have this petal above that one and just lift them up. If you don't mail these in boxes, they get kind of squished anyway. These are kind of what I call a decorator card, and it's something more that I would send in a box with an actual bigger like gift, rather than having it be squashed in an envelope through the mail. So then once you get everything kind of aligned the way you want it, it stays better. So alright, we'll get these guys up, up, up. And I can quit playing with this. It's probably going to get changed before I get it to its destination anyway. But you can see how it gives, you know, a little bit more texture and raise to the flowers, and I like how it puffs up off of the foam frame, and I like the foam puffed up off of the card itself. So here's our little dragonfly. And we'll grab his wing here with the tweezers. A little bit of the glossy accents on his back here. It would flow. There we go. And then I'm going to place him. Whoops, that was not what I wanted. Well, he could have been cute on the grass. I'll get a little extra glossy there, so I'm going to slide him. And that way it kind of covered the goobered glossy accents. And I forgot to grab my stylus. Once he's dry, you can bend those wings up a little bit more like they were. And the foam kind of protects his wings under that layer. Alright, so we're almost finished. Now we just have the hello. And so to show you how I do the hello, let me put my pin in this. I'm going to switch to the Super Tack glue. And I had this formulated from a product that is no longer available. And let me get my sheet. So this is left over from mailing labels. This is from my shipping labels, and I save all of this stuff. You can save everything left over from your stickers, even the backing that you peel off. And I've used it yesterday, so I'm kind of just wiping away what the excess was, and it has static on it, so it gets a little bit goobery. This is a dedicated to glue dauber. It is going to dry sticky. Essentially, this is going to be similar to adding glue dots all over the back of your little piece. I say similar because I don't want to infringe upon their name for their product, because it is not the same product. But you can make what I call glue spots with this glue. It does a lot of great things. You can see here, I left the lid off yesterday and it kind of became sticky, so it's like a giant glue dot is stuck on the end of it. But we can get rid of it. So what I'm going to do is make a puddle of the glue. Now let's say I wanted to make glue dots or spots. I'm going to just take it and I'm going to just make those dots. I'm touching the paper. I'm going to make those as big as I want to be. I can make zigzaggy little strips for ribbons. I can make them as large or as small as I want. Here I'm going to spread this out. I'm only doing one little hello, but you can do these ahead of time. And they'll stick down. Real quick, I do need to grab my brayer, because that is the only item that I see that I don't have out. I apologize for that. And right. So I'm going to take my hello, and I'm going to turn it face down on my release paper sheet, and I'm going to take my dauber. Now I don't want it to stick to the sticky dauber, so I'm going to coat the whole dauber. And this is where I would do a lot more pieces at once. Then I'm going to lightly dauber the glue onto the back of the hello. And this is how I put down all of my little die cuts. So now this is like a bazillion little sticky dots all over the back of this. And this dries clear, but it also stays sticky until you stick something to it. And additional videos will be forthcoming on all of the wonderful things you can do. You can read about Blah to Bling on the website under the Mega Tack. So now I'm going to take, because this is a really teeny little die cut here, I'm going to take maybe my pokey tool and stick it to the pokey tool. And this is going to help me to line it up. So once this, well, even if it hasn't dried completely, it still becomes kind of repositionable, and it's erasable on the paper. So I'm going to just kind of move this around and slide it until it's level. I'm going to have to hold it up so I can see if it's level, which it is not. Just bump that up. And once I have it where I want it, I'm going to press it in place. I haven't pressed it very hard, so if I had to, I could use my pokey tool and I could lift it up. Okay? And then I have glitter all over my brayer. And I'm not going to wash it because it will leave it damp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick it under my paper, and I'm going to brayer this. And this is just what I call steamrollering. This makes the items stick down to our card harder than what we can do with our fingers. There's no point in giving ourselves more arthritis than we're already going to get by pressing down so hard. And you can see it did pick up a little bit of glitter, but I can brush that away. Now this one is so tiny that I will get little bits of glue that squish out, or I accidentally get it on the front. But if you use your glue eraser, you can come along and go along the edges, and you can clean up any extra little glue, or I call them goobers, and I call this glue eraser my goober getter. And I'm just erasing off anything that came in around the edges, and you can kind of feel it, and if you feel like there's some point that's tacky to it, then you know that glue's there. But as long as this glue, it has dried into what I'll call the sticky dot formation, it will lift off. And the Super Tack does come in a small bottle, a half ounce, I think it's a half ounce. You can't quote me now, I'd have to go look at the website. And then a bigger bottle as well. And it looks like I got a little bit of a mark right there from my finger. The glue eraser usually will take off those things as well. Alright, so we now have our center step card put through an embossing folder. We have a foam frame. We've done our foliage daisy ferns and grass tops. I've shown you a little bit of the embellishment mousse by Tonic Studios, the Nouveau embellishment mousse. And that is my completed project for my very first all the way through technique demo. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining me, and you guys have a wonderful day.